Guys, this is Pastor Caleb here at Calvary Chapel, Fullerton. I hope you're having a great day. We're getting ready to do our next segment of Going Deeper, where we dig into a little bit of Sunday's message and talk about the questions that we're going to be going over in our small group. So if you were with us on Sunday, Pastor Rich was going through Romans chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. And a great word for some of the things that are going on right now in our country as we are just struggling with being pulled in all kind of different directions. And in the beginning of the message, Paul was talking about this idea of the stronger and the weaker brother, and talking about our role in terms of carrying, bearing with in love those that we might consider weaker. And so our first question today kind of comes right out of those first two different descriptions. When you hear those descriptions, stronger or weaker, which one did you identify with immediately and why? You know, it's good to kind of think about why we might see ourselves in one perspective or another. The other thing that came out of that is we talked about our need for listening to people that we might disagree with, even those that we might think, man, they're speaking heresy, they're totally wrong. What are some barriers that you have when you think about the idea of just simply listening, not worrying about correcting, not waiting to jump in, but listening, allowing somebody to share where you just process, trying to put yourself in their shoes. So what things for you are the triggers that make it really difficult, to just be able to sit there and listen to the person that you might disagree with? Rich mentioned that sometimes these people who seem angry at other people are sometimes angry at God. This was one of the things that was kind of hinted at in our passage, coming out of the Psalms, where he's saying the reproaches that, people have against God are coming at me. And so let's think about for a moment some of those lies that the enemy uses to try to distract or distort our understanding of God. If you were to take a moment and kind of inventory some of the lies that the enemy, tries to get you to believe about God, what are some of those different lies? Is it the idea that he's not really good, that he's not going to deliver on his word, that he doesn't really care about you? And maybe one of the other things that would be good to think about is how does some of the truths of the gospel, defeat some of those different lies? What do I learn in the gospel, about that good news of God becoming a man, dying on a cross for my sin, resurrecting? Are there some truths in the gospel, that really help equip me to deal with some of those different lies? Now, can you remember a time in your life when you had to endure a long period of difficulty? We talked about this idea of hupomone, remaining under, kind of that equation to equal hope. And one of the things that we want to talk about, for those of you guys who can relate to this idea of having to endure, remain under, what were some of the things that helped you as you held fast to trusting in God, remaining under? Another thing that's helpful to discuss as we learn some of these lessons from one another, I think there are times in each of our lives where we felt like, man, I did give up. Like I wasn't able to just remain under. I was like Jonah, I was on the run, or I'm like, God, I'm done. What was it like? How did you navigate that season in your life where you felt like I let go, I gave up, I felt like I was just done with God, or God was done with me? It would be helpful to maybe hear how some of us navigated those circumstances in our lives, where when we were like an Elijah thinking, I'm done, or David when he was just really discouraged. And so let's talk about some of those different experiences. And lastly, this idea about building other believers up, who that you might consider weaker or that you disagree with. I think this is an area that we are called to do as Christians. And so this is a good question for us to kind of spend some time for application personally, to say, are there anybody in my life, Lord, that I can maybe pray for? And maybe make a list of one or two people and pick a few different things, 2 or 3 different things that you can pray into their lives to build them up. Maybe there's some truths of the gospel, maybe there's some different ways that you and I can go about speaking words of life or encouragement, or maybe there's some things that we can keep from saying. But let's think about some practical ways that we can look to build up some of these people that God has placed in our lives to grow us and to grow them. What a great topic this week to have in our Connect groups. All right, guys, I'm praying for you and your groups. I'm hoping it's an amazing time. We'll see you soon.